What is your favorite thing about the world? Not as in like specifically people or things or like you walk outside and you see something and you're just I love that I get to exist and see that. What is that for you? For me, it'd probably have to be the landscape of places. I like going outside and seeing all the trees look all nice, and I like seeing the meadows look nice on the sunset, on the shadows that the sun casts on the rainy days that the clouds are over fields, and I see the cows strolling along. I love that type of stuff. I also like the bustling city environments. I also like people rushing to their jobs, grabbing a cup of coffee. I also like genuine human interaction. I like it when two people, strangers, just start talking and they look like they're having such a good time and they're just talking and connecting with each other. Strangers, they've never met each other. This question has nothing to do with the title, but it does. I asked my friends this question. What is one thing that you find that you really enjoy about the world? I asked this question to two friends and they answered two different questions. For friend A, his answer was, well, a certain love interest of mine exists in this world, and that's what I love about the world. And I thought that was the sweetest thing ever. If you're watching this, I love you. Hope everything goes well. And another friend told me, I like to see the sunset. I like to see the sun. I like to see I like to see when it comes down from the sky. The reason I'm asking this question is because I have gone on a let's say like a bout of philosophical intriguement into Friedrich Nietzsche. I'm probably butchering his name. I'm probably gonna say it different, like 30 different times in this video. But the reason for my question is a big thing with I'm just gonna call him Frederick because Nietzsche is just gonna be too hard for me. No disrespect, I love this guy. His big thing was suffering is something to be sought after. The way you obtain happiness is not by necessarily aiming for happiness, it's aiming for suffering. In suffering, you'll find the joys in life. So he preaches to embrace suffering, to hug it, so to speak, to embrace it when it comes, to be happy that you're able to suffer. And I've like recently, I feel like this quote of his has come at a really fun part of in my life because recently I've also been very obsessed with this quote that goes, Icarus laughed as he fell. If you guys aren't aware, Icarus is the, I think, old Roman god story of Icarus who flew too close to the sun, and he was he was burned with his chariot and he fell to the ground. I think later on iterations, people like added that he laughed as he fell, and it's like, why would he laugh? Like, this is so stupid. In his hubris, he went up there and he got burned, of course, because no one can touch the sun, and he fell down to the ground, and presumably he died, or at least he failed. Why would Icarus be laughing? I came up with a really fun interpretation as to why he's laughing and why, and this is why I love this quote so much. Icarus laughed because it was funny, because there was so much irony in his massive bravado of going up there and failing so miserably, because in this moment he's suffering so deeply, but it's like there's this sense of humor to it because like it's just like you there's no you just suffer. And it's like, why would that be funny? But it's funny because I think the story goes that the gods wouldn't allow Icarus to go up to the sun. And it's funny because the gods they they impose this suffering onto Icarus. But it's funny because they can't feel that suffering. They impose all this suffering and all this let's say just unfortunate events onto people. But because by virtue of being a god and by virtue of being perfect, you cannot suffer. And if you suffer, it's not to the extent that we suffer, because in true suffering, there comes a sense of being powerless, but to a perfect, all knowing, all powerful being, there is no powerlessness. You cannot suffer. We have something that the gods can't obtain. So, in a way, I think Icarus was laughing in the face of the gods, saying that even though you smited me down, and even though I failed in my hubris, and even though I'm falling, even though I'm suffering, I have something that you can't have. I have my suffering. How does this relate to the question I asked? This relates to the question I asked because I've realized that almost everything I love about life, almost everything that I hold dear, comes about through the suffering of myself or the suffering of other people. My landscapes that I really like seeing come through the suffering of countless of people who designed and architected and kept up with all this stuff and made it so everything looks how it's supposed to look. My friend's romantic reason for wanting to be in this world brings with it so much suffering. There's so much anxiety, there's so much unknowns when dealing with another person. There's so much things that you want to do but can't. There's so many things that they want to do but can't. Obviously, love comes with like its own host of suffering problems. But even friend B, who said that, well, my sunset my sunset answer of what I like about the world has nothing to do with suffering. But I think I disagree. Not only because you're in an environment that's safe enough to view the sunset, which came about through a lot of suffering, also because the reason you may like the sunset may also come about by suffering. He said that, I'm trying to quote him the best I can. He said that the sunset will always be there. The sun is always there. That level of consistency, I feel like, brings him some sort of comfort. I feel like whenever I'm sitting down and staring at the sunset, it brings me the sense of fulfillment and joy, but joy with a hint of sadness. Like, I've suffered to see this beautiful sunset. I've suffered, but now I can rest. I'm not going to sit here and, like attribute things to his mental state that aren't really there. I don't know why he likes the sunset. That's all the quote I said before is all the information he gave me, but I do feel as though the reason why he likes to sit down and enjoy the sunset is due in part to some form of suffering that he's felt. And I find it so interesting how instead of like running away from, and not so much running away, but like finding being angry at these feelings of suffering, being angry at these feelings of depression, or being angry at these feelings of anxiety, because they're bad feelings. They're feelings that we shouldn't be having. It's such a nice thought to think that, no, actually, this feeling is actually very dear to me because this feeling brings about so much more joy than not suffering would have. Having this feeling makes it so I'm not just some perfect aligned thing that just knows everything and does everything correctly. I'm human. I'm a person. And that's something that even a god can't be because they can't suffer the way that we can suffer. And I feel like the suffering makes us understand each other better. Do you think that a god would be able to understand you as well as your fellow man? Probably, because they'd be like all knowing and all powerful and whatever. But do you feel as though they can make you feel as if you understand them? The way someone else makes you feel like you understand them when they've suffered the same way you have. It reminds me a lot of like, this is probably just like the whole pain arc from Naruto, like just done over again to bring it back to anime somehow. But yeah, you should suffer. I'm not wishing suffering upon you, of course not. I'm just saying when suffering does come, because it will, embrace it. It's nice. Live a little, Anyways, that's it for me. Bye.